Okay, if we want to bisect a segment, then that means we want to split a segment in half. That's the same thing as finding the midpoint of the segment. Now, I can certainly do this by folding my paper. I can fold the segment so that endpoint, let's say I'm looking at segment DE that's on my screen. If I have that segment drawn on my paper, then I can fold it so that point D is on top of point E. I can make a crease mark in my paper, and that crease mark would represent my midpoint. That would represent the bisector of the segment. But if I want to use my tools to do it, my geometric tools, let me show you how to do that. To start off with, I'm going to put my anchor point at point D, at either one of the endpoints, but I'm going to choose to start at point D. I'm going to stretch my compass width to a width that I know is more than half of my segment length. So this requires me to visualize where the midpoint is going to go. If I'm visualizing, just looking at the segment, thinking about where the middle would be, I think it's about where my cursor is, right there in the middle where my 4 arrows are. And so I want to make sure that my compass width is past where that midpoint is, where I think that midpoint is going to go. Okay? So I've got to make sure that I go more than halfway. I'm going to make an arc on one side of my line segment. And then I'm going to do that on the opposite side of my line segment. If I want to draw the whole circle, then I can. But it's not necessary. Sometimes a lot of marks on my paper will make it confusing for me. All right, then, so I've done 2 marks from point D. So now I'm going to do the same marks from point E. I'm going to keep my compass the same width. I'm just going to move my anchor point to E. And I'm only concerned with where the arcs from point E will cross the arcs from point D. So I'm going to make just a mark where they cross the other arcs so that I now have 2 points of intersection. Move my compass out of the way. And I want to highlight those points of intersection. Let's do them in a different color. So there's 1 point of intersection. And there's my other point of intersection. Now the cool thing about this method is when you join those 2 points of intersection, you have found the midpoint, or you have found the segment that bisects segment DE, whatever I began with. So you can tell me either way. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, getting my straight edge just right. So if all I want is the midpoint, then all I might do is make one little mark right here. Right there at the where my straight edge crosses segment DE. And then I can label that, let's call it point F. And you have found F to be the midpoint of segment DE. So the distance from D to F would equal the distance from F to E. If you wanted to draw the whole segment that bisects segment DE, then you certainly could do that. Just put your straight edge back up there, get your pen, and now I see that the red segment is the bisector of segment DE. It's not necessary to draw the whole segment if what I'm looking for is the midpoint. But if you want to draw the whole segment, that's fine. You can word this several ways. You can say F is the midpoint of segment DE. If you do say that, then you need to be sure to put your segment mark above DE. So we could say F is the midpoint of segment DE. I could say, oops, let's leave that there. I could say that the distance from D to F is equal to the distance from F to E. Or I could say that segment DF is congruent to segment FE. And if I say that the segments are congruent, then I need to be sure to use my segment marks and my congruent sign. So I say that distances are equal, like on option number 2, distances are equal, or on option 3, segments are congruent. Okay? Very nice. That's it.